and welcome to today's video in which we have this 1993 Porsche 968. Now I've decided to film directly into the sun, which means I'm completely blind, and also there's a man leaf blowing back there, so apologies if you can hear that. Now I've always been interested by the 968 because I've always been a fan of the 944, but then this has got like a 928 front end, so I quite like the look of these cars. And I haven't decided yet whether I'd have a 944 or a 968. So maybe we'll decide in today's video. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Now the first thing I'd like to discuss is the interior, which if you've got a 944 or you've been in them, will probably be quite familiar, because a lot of this is pretty much the same as a 944. I think a couple of the knobs are slightly different, but largely it's the same, and that's not a bad thing because everything is laid out where you'd expect it to be. And these chairs are lovely, very adjustable because of all the buttons on the side. They're nicely supportive, the leather's nice and smooth. It's just a nice place to be. I like it in here, and this sunroof is absolutely enormous. It's the biggest sunroof I've ever seen, and I like a sunroof, so top marks in here. Now if you know anything about Porsches, or you can count the number of HT leads, you'll know that this is a 4-cylinder engine. It was the first engine made by Porsche to have their Vario cam system, which is just VVT, which later went on to the 993, which came about 2 years later than the first 968. I'll talk more about this engine once we're out on the road. Let's go for a drive. It's immobilised itself. It's still immobilised itself. Still immobilised itself. Great. Turn on! Oh my goodness. There we go. Normal Porsche procedure. I've got loads of cack on my sunglasses, yeah. Wait for this van. The slowest moving van in the world. Now this engine produces about 270 odd horsepower. So, you know, it's not going to be slow, but then I doubt it's going to be uber quick either. Because obviously at the time of its launch, the 968 was the entry-level Porsche. It replaced the 944. So it's not going to compete with the 911 or anything like that. So you can sort of tell it feels like an entry-level product. And that's not a bad thing. That isn't a bad thing by any means. But 4 cylinders? What is interesting though is that the instrument cluster has fogged up. I left it running, warming up before I started filming this section, and it's gone all foggy. So I can't see the volts in the corner. To be fair, it's not a slow car. What are the brakes like? Slightly spongy. Now when they were first designing the 968, they were going to call it the 944 S3. They were just going to do a sort of final version of the 944 before canning it. But they changed so much of it, about 80% of the 944's components were changed when making the 968. So they couldn't really call it a 944, which is why they then went with 968. So what they did was they took the 2.5 litre 4-cylinder from the 944 S2 and threw most of it away. So it's got different pistons, different crankshaft, different inlet, most of it's different. Like look, 20 miles an hour, second gear, about 1700 RPM, flat out, it does shift. And that's the speed limit in second. It's very torquey. I suppose that's the displacement, isn't it? There's no replacement for displacement, as they say. I think I've sussed it. The thing that this car lacks is a good soundtrack. Because 4-cylinders are definitely capable of making a very good noise. It's just this one kind of doesn't. And I think that's what it's lacking. The power delivery is very nice. The torque curve is very smooth. You get oodles of torque low down. So, I mean, 1900 RPM now, floor it and off you go. So it is torquey. Now where am I going to go? So I've been driving it for about half an hour now, and it is growing on me. At first, I thought, well, this is a bit weird, because it's not a small, nippy little sports car. It's bigger, more comfortable, it's quite quiet. You could do a long distance in this. The manual gearbox was sort of throwing a spanner in the works of that, because it feels like it's trying to be a GT car, but then trying to be a sports car. At first, it felt a little bit confused. It's not confused at all. It's really good at the blend of both. Because now I'm going through a village, and it's very quiet, and it's very comfortable, and the gearbox is very easy, and the steering is nicely weighted. The mirrors are plenty big enough so I can see how much room I have getting past these parked cars. But in a minute, I know that this road opens up. It's going to be a joy threading this car along the winding roads, this manual gearbox, the surprisingly powerful 4-cylinder engine. There is a horse. That's a massive horse. God dear. It's lovely to rev match. Whee! If you're looking for something that you could use fairly regularly, drive long distances with the occasional little bash down a curvy road, look no further. It's a very capable car. And there we have it. I have returned to this lovely autumnal scene to sum up today's video. So, what do I think of the 968? Well, it's a very good blend between a chuckable, lively sports car and a comfortable cruiser. So if you're the kind of person that wants a nice, quiet, comfortable car to do long journeys in, but there's a risk that you might find a nice road and want to fly down it, this is the perfect kind of car for you. Now, while this 3-litre 4-cylinder is a little bit weird, just as a concept, it is quite nice. It's more than powerful enough, and when you've got the enormous sunroof cocked, it nearly makes a good enough noise. If I was to have one of these, I'd probably put a slightly fruity exhaust on it. Just adds a little bit of je ne sais quoi. Now, if you have a classic car that you'd like to sell, head over to classiccarbuyer.co.uk, and if you like this video, give it a like, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. I'm going to sneeze again. Excuse me. Oh, bloody hell, it's suddenly boiling in here.